Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another mildly interesting video where we ask the age-old question, will it slime or are we stupid? That time I got reincarnated as a slime, a staple in the isekai genre of anime. Apparently this series is turning 10 years old, like the series as a whole. Naturally, the Twitter account announced that they're releasing a stage play set for August, and they're also preparing like an OVA series, which takes place between Season 1 and Season 2, and it's gonna be like 3 episodes long. Now, I have not read the web novels, the light novels, or the manga. I've only watched the anime and none of the specials at all. So I'm only going to be focusing on the anime for this review or retrospective as you might call it. Now, just to let you know, I did not watch this thing 5 years ago when it first aired. I finished it 5 months ago. When it comes to actually starting, I think I took over a year to actually finish both seasons. So, yes, I am a very definitely trustworthy person in the anime community whose reviews you can always... Part 1, the visuals. They're okay. They work. I mean, we're not talking about like Chainsaw Man quality here, but at the same time, we're not talking about XRM quality here. Which, by the way, in Indonesia, is free to watch on YouTube. So yeah. But overall, the visuals are okay. They help carry the story forward. And the action scenes with this type of animation actually looks pretty cool. It holds up pretty well. You see a lot of the action going around, all the swinging, all like the dramatic events. It honestly works really, really well. Part 2, the audio/soundtrack. It's forgettable. I do not remember any of the soundtrack. I'll just say this, the soundtrack in How to Train Your Dragon is way more memorable than the soundtrack in the Slime anime. That's for sure. But the second season, first opening, that's pretty good. It's a bit of a banger, but I'm not gonna listen to it all the time because I have other anime openings to listen to. Part 3, the characters. Let's get Rimuru out of the way first. I like him, okay? He is a 40-year-old man who is acting like a 40-year-old mature man even when he's reincarnated as a freaking slime. It's not like the other types of like animes that I've seen. Like I've seen a little bit of Mushoku Tensei, and essentially this guy who is like 35 years old gets hit by a truck, obviously, gets reincarnated to another world, obviously, and then naturally starts acting like a 13-year-old child. It's like, sorry, it's just like a little bit off-putting to me. At least he grows from that. At least he's growing from his experience, so that makes it still enjoyable to watch overall. For Rimuru, however, that's like a completely different thing. He is actually acting like an adult. He is not obsessed with sex or power. He just wants to have everyone just be friends in a way. He just wants everyone to like just get along with each other. He wants to build a nation of peace because the way he died was not peaceful at all. He literally got stabbed by a murderer on episode 1. So that is very interesting to see, and that makes him a really likable character. Now for the other characters, they are pretty enjoyable, I guess. Their shenanigans are pretty fun to watch around, although sometimes it can get a little tiring, but overall, it's pretty fine. The show holds up itself quite well with just the characters. But we have a plot to discuss. Part 4, the plot. They took a really interesting direction overall as the franchise with this story. So when I'm thinking about like isekai animes, I'm just gonna assume like, oh, okay, they need to like draw the audience in, so they're gonna have like bombastic fights and like all that stuff. And that is present in the anime, but for the most part, the plot is just like a SimCity simulator kind of thing, where Rimuru is just like essentially trying to build up his city bit by bit, slowly adding in like more monsters, more jobs, making it bigger, making the roads better, making the water cleaner, I guess, because that's what cities do. That is pretty interesting, although not that action-packed, and I completely understand if you're not into that. But the reason that I powered through all of that was because I had a spoiler. Well, this is a bit of a vague spoiler, so not really a spoiler. But essentially the way it goes is that, let's just say there's going to be a lot of genocide on Season 2. So, I powered through everything. I powered through all the character relationships that was built up, through all of the city stuff that was built up, through all of the character development that every character went through. I powered through all of that in Season 1, and overall, it was incredibly enjoyable. As its own season, I think it holds up perfectly well with this type of plot, a literal SimCity plot. But Season 2 kicks things up by a margin, like a substantial margin, not just like a small margin. There's like more action scenes right now. There's more stuff going on because now that we've spent all this time building up all the relationships and the character development in season 1, we can finally get to the actual plot of season 2 so that things have more emotion in them. So that we're not just wasting time just going like, oh, here's why you should root for this character, because we've already done all that in season 1. And when the action hits in season 2, it hits hard. The plot is honestly a much higher step than season 1 ever offered. Things are now bigger, things are now better. I don't want to spoil the plot because honestly, I want you to experience this for yourself. We're going to be meeting some old enemies, we're making some new enemies, we're finding out how those enemies are connected together, how all of the characters that we saw in season 1 are all connected together in this plot. It is honestly an incredible, enjoyable season. So, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, 10 years later. Does it still hold up? I think the story does. I mean, like, we're talking about a web novel and then a light novel series that got adapted into the manga. But if that is the original plot that's, like, actually being, like, carried over to this anime, holds up really well. I'm still kind of shocked that, like, someone was able to, like, think about, like, a SimCity type of simulator for an isekai anime out of all things, or an isekai property out of all things, back in 2013. So, overall, it has pretty much aged well, and I highly recommend that you go watch it.